Hello, welcome to Roussel Reads. I'm Deja, and today we are going to do a recent reads. So, this is going to be the last 5 books that I read for 2025. This has been a long time coming. I just keep pushing back this video just because I was prioritizing other things and I just haven't found the time to just sit down and record anything. And so we are finally here to talk about the last 5 books that I read for 2025. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this video. The first one is Love Be Damned by Brianna Garrett. This is one that I have talked about. Like, I did a reading vlog for it, and then it was in my best books of 2025. So I've talked about this book, but this is my official review. So I really enjoyed this YA novel. It's a young adult contemporary fantasy. I remember mentioning that like I was excited for this because it had like elements of a book that I really enjoy, which is like sister relationships. I love like angel, demon, paranormal kind of things. And I don't know, I just thought that it could be an interesting story. And I'm glad that I tried it out because it really was like a solid YA fantasy book for me. It had very strong characters. My favorite thing about the story was the character relationships. I just felt like the author was great at making these characters feel very distinct from each other, but also find that like family amongst themselves. And some of them were family, but like just the relationships that these characters had with each other was just so heartwarming, and the way that they supported each other and was there for each other. Like, I really enjoyed that aspect of the story. I think Ayana was a strong protagonist as well. Ayana has this internal struggle about like her self-worth and all of that, but it's not like too heavy-handed until like the end. But like the way that it ties in with the overall story of this mirror demon and her insecurities and all of that, like I just thought that this was just a well thought out, well planned novel. I just had a great time, and I have mentioned it many times before with the story that like I do feel like it was dated. Like, it had some references that I feel like teens of today would not really get, or maybe they would, but it just feels like a very millennial coded YA book. But even with like those millennial things, like I feel like this could be a story that young adults of today could enjoy. Like, it wasn't too long. It was more contemporary than it was like fantasy. I think the only fantasy elements were like the mirror demon like being there, and then there was like a guardian angel, but it's like very light fantasy. So like, yeah, it was just a really fun read, and I just had a great time reading it. So it's one that I would definitely recommend if you are so wanting to try YA. And even if you're not, I do feel like this was still a very solid YA book, and I did enjoy it. Okay. Sorry if there's like a slight change in my camera. I had to adjust because I ran out of storage on my phone. So let's get back to it. So the next book that I have is The Perfect Unicorn by KJ Bradford. Now, I almost did not pick this up because the spice marketing for this was very cringy to me. The author decided to combine unicorn with the P word for vagina, and I just, why? I, oh my gosh, just why? But I honestly feel like I'm happy that I decided to give it another chance because despite all the spice marketing for this book, I don't feel like it was like overly spicy. Now, I will also say that I did skip those scenes. So take that with a grain of salt. But like, I feel like the amount of spice marketing that was done for this book when there's only like 1.5 scenes, like I don't get why that was a thing. But the story basically follows a unicorn who is like the last one that has been born, and she's kind of like insecure just because of how she grew up with her family. And then she goes on this quest to kind of like prove herself to her family. And on the way, she ends up saving this random guy that she finds in the forest, which of course is the love interest. One of the things that I really liked about this was that it did give me those like fairy tale vibes. It very much gave me like whimsical, like forest vibes. And I think that the writing was actually pretty good as well. And so I really enjoyed that aspect. I also just really enjoyed the conversations between the two characters, like the love interest and the main character. I'm blanking on both of their names, but I really enjoyed their conversations. Like I feel like they had a nice banter. They had like emotional connection points. So like I really enjoyed that aspect. So I feel like if we would have continued with those aspects of this fairy tale world, this more emotional, like kind of story, I feel like this could have been like a solid 4 star, 5 star read for me because yeah, it was those elements were really good. Now, the things that I didn't quite like I said, I skip the sex scenes and sometimes I do read them if I'm like engaged, but the thing with these sex scenes is that I just feel like it was a complete 180 from the other part of the story. Like I don't feel like they connected well with like the emotional part of the story. Both of these characters have like wounds and they kind of bring out the best in each other in terms of like helping them see themselves in a different way. And I feel like when it got to like the spicy parts of it, like it just felt like the male main character was just becoming another shadow daddy. Like the way that he was trying to be like sexual, like it just felt so off to me. Like, who the hell says, think of me like when you're gods or whatever that line is? I just don't understand like how the characters just felt so different to me. Like, I don't know. Like, you had these tender moments between them, and then you get to these sex scenes, and it just reads like a I don't know, it just reads like two different characters and I could not get into it. Like I really could not. And like that was like pretty much like the last like I want to say maybe 30 to 20% of the book, like just this sexual tension between them. And I didn't care. Like I was just like these aren't the characters that I like. So I'm just like mm-mm, no. So I skipped all of those sex scenes, or really skimmed them. And there's probably like other like emotional moments and stuff that happened in there. But honestly, because I really did not care, like that's when I was just like, I'm just gonna skip them. And so that's why I can't give this book like a solid 4 stars because if I'm skipping scenes in your books, like I feel like that's it can't be a solid 4 star for me. Like it just can't because a solid 4 star, I'm not going to be skipping scenes. And so, yeah, I do think that I would try another book by this author because, like I said, like I did like those tender moments and I did like the conversations between them and I did like the fairy tale aspects and the writing of this world. But those sex scenes, nah, I did not like those. And I also feel like it was very like insta lust. There's like this like dream world or something that she goes in and it's very like lusty in there and I'm just like I don't know, it just those elements just didn't connect for me and so yeah, it it was a fine fantasy romance for a novella. It's one that I would say try out if any of this sounds interesting to you and you don't mind the more like shadow daddy-esque sex scene parts, but like I don't know, it just didn't connect for me. And while I don't think it was the worst fantasy romance I've ever read, I'm also not in love with it. And then I read Harmattan Season by Tochi Onyebuchi. I think this will be my last Tochi Onyebuchi book. I just don't think I like this author's writing. At first, when I did my try chapter of it, I really, really loved that first chapter. Like it really got me hooked. But slowly, I started to lose interest. And honestly, I am blanking on a lot of what happened because I read this book a few months ago and it was not a memorable book for me. I feel like there was like elements of the world that I liked, like the conversations about like the colonialism, power stuff. Like I really like those elements, but the actual story, I think, is where I have a problem. Like, I just wasn't as engaged, and I feel like maybe I was supposed to get something out of the story, but I don't know. Because, like, I don't know. I feel like it says something that like I'm not remembering the story, and I feel like it was supposed to be a harder hitting story than like what I actually got. So yeah, I say that this is my last Tochi Onyebuchi because I don't think I've ever liked anything that they've written. So yeah, I wish I could say more about this book, but like I said, like I don't remember it. So um yeah, and I didn't write a review at the time, so I can't even see like what I thought. Um yeah. Um Moving on. The next one that I read was Aligned by TJ Williams. This was an indie author that I follow on Threads. They released a sci-fi romance that I still have not gotten to yet, but I really do want to. This was a newsletter exclusive for them, and this follows kind of like a mercenary, I want to say, who's trying to complete a job. But that's all I will say because this is a short story. Overall, I really did like this story. It wasn't a romance, like their actual novel, which is a sci-fi romance, but I thought that the writing was pretty solid. I was really engaged with like the character dynamics. It's a very queer friendly world, and the author was good at setting up like the stakes and stuff for like the mercenary and just these character dynamics, but also giving us like world building, character building details without it being boring or like info dumping. So I thought that this was a very solid story. So like I'm definitely intrigued to try their sci-fi romance. I do like the way that they write sci-fi. It's not very like hard sci-fi. Like there's definitely like scientific like elements and technological advancements and stuff in the world, but like it doesn't go into like the hard sci-fi elements of it. So I think that there is a chance that I will like their sci-fi romance. So I am excited to try that out. And the last book that I have for 2025 is Elemental by Whitney Hill. I have been wanting to read more of like a longer series that is more like paranormal urban fantasy, specifically by a black author, because I don't think we have a lot of those. And so I decided to pick up Elemental. And what do I think of this? I liked it. I will say, like, I think it was solid for what it was. It definitely gave me old school urban fantasy vibes. I can definitely see the inspiration. I think that they say I think that the author said that it was very inspired by Anita Blake. And I feel like that's more like a detective mystery kind of urban fantasy. And that is definitely what this is. And I will say that part of my okayness with this story is that like I'm not a huge fan of detective stories. Like I usually prefer like the thrilling elements, like the intense action of the mystery thriller genre. But this one was definitely more like mystery as they're trying to figure out what's happening to these women. And particularly, the main character is hired to find a grandmother, I believe. Yeah, I think it's a grandmother. And it's a magical grandmother. She's an elf. So I thought that this was an interesting story. I thought that it was a solid story for what it was. I am intrigued to try the next book because it does have this like reveal of like who the character is, and I'm curious like how it's going to happen like in the rest of the series because this is a long series. Like I feel like there's like 10 books in the series. And so yeah, I'm curious to see like where the series goes. And so I'm willing to try the next book even though like I wasn't overly in love with this story, but yeah, I think that the main character, she was fine. I think the thing that I liked the most about this story were like the paranormal creature elements. There's elves in this world. There's genies. I think. I think there's genies in this world, or Gen. Those are different. I think. Yeah, I think there's Jinn in this world. There's also elementals and other like paranormal creatures, werewolves, and all of that. And I also kind of like the relationship aspect of this. Like, it's not a romance, I will say. It's more, I feel like the romance is more of like a subplot, and I don't think that like the building of the relationship is actually like the main focus of the series. But yeah, I thought that this was a solid urban fantasy. It definitely is more of that Anita Blake mystery element. I did think that it slowed down a little bit in like the 50% to maybe 70% mark. I felt like it was slowing down a little bit in the middle, but overall, I thought it was solid, so I gave it like 3.5 stars. But that is all of the books I'm going to talk about today because these are my last reads of 2025 and I wanted to talk about them. Overall, not a bad way to end the year, but unfortunately in 2025 I did not get any 5 stars. But yeah, I really hope that you have enjoyed this video, and if you have any comments about any of these books, definitely let me know. And if you don't want to do that, you can also just leave whatever emoji I put on the screen. But until next time, I will see you in my next video. Bye!